Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the Yamaha MT-07. This is a bike that I'm a huge fan of, and I think it is kind of a class leader, or certainly among the class leaders. And in this video, I'm going to review this bike in detail and try to show you a number of things that the other videos aren't showing you. First thing I want to do though is thank McLean Sports. The S is not in the video on the top over there, but McLean Sports gives me complete access to their entire product line. And the key for you is that if I have something that I didn't get to in this video that you want to know about it, again, having complete access to this product line allows me to come back to this vehicle again and again and again to make sure that you have a video database of the information you need. So let me know in the comments below the types of things you want to know. I'll come back to it either in the comment section or on future videos. And the other thing is, this is a 2023, but we're filming here in late 2023. 2024s of all kinds of things are arriving. So if you want to see a bunch of new bikes, a bunch of new ATVs, power sports, 2024s are starting to arrive here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. So we're going to make sure we cover them here on this channel. So do me a favor, hit subscribe, hit the like button, leave me some comments, help this channel to grow a little bit. And the more it grows, the more I get to come to these guys and say, hey, I want to have a little bit more access again and again. Now, McLean's is great. They give me full access anyways, but there's more in store here. So let's get going with this review. All right, let's start by classifying this bike. If you look at the Yamaha website, they call it the hyper naked class, which, I don't know, it's just a marketing term. It means nothing. What it really is a little bit of budget pieces put around a little bit of higher end pieces to combine a bike that is pretty affordable and pretty great. There is room to move up in the lineup, and they give you bigger and faster engines to do that. There's room to move down to something like the MT-03, which we reviewed yesterday. But this is kind of that segment. The engine size, the power, everything you kind of have is kind of that segment that makes it a perfect on-road bike. Can you take it to the track? Absolutely. But do you have enough power to have a very powerful street bike? Yes, you do. And it's also just kind of the bike that you can use in your everyday life without being overwhelmed by power, overwhelmed by insurance premiums, and overwhelmed by other things. But it's fast enough and fun enough to have fun. Does that make sense? We're going to go through in detail what it's got that's above average, what it's got that's kind of average, and we'll talk about seating position, everything we can. Let's get going with it right now. All right, we're going to start by taking a look at the front wheel here, and I always say, you know, you can really tell what the manufacturer intended by looking at the front wheel of a motorcycle. You get a lot of information, and the first thing you're going to find, compared to the MT-03, the MT-03 had upside-down forks, which was a pretty high-end style for a, you know, roughly 300cc motorcycle. This one goes back to the traditional fork, so I want to be clear. This is not, you know, abnormal for the class. This is very class competitive, but where the lower end bike has the higher end style front forks, this one has the more traditional forks. So in some ways you could say this is a money saving piece that, you know, maybe, you know, you wouldn't see on the MT-03 even, right? But again, class competitive, I don't want to over or underplay that. This is traditional suspension forks. So where you might say this is class saving or money saving, where they make up for it is in the tire. So the MT-03 that we reviewed yesterday had the same tires in that 300cc twin cylinder bike as my 4-cylinder 950cc sport bike from another manufacturer. So same thing here. You have Michelin tires here that are a step up from pretty much all the regular stuff in the class. Usually you have a Dunlop of some sort, usually a Road Sport 2, sometimes a different thing. So these are Michelins, which I believe is a step up. So you, again, traditional forks, but a step up in tires. The rest of it's pretty traditional as well. Standard style brakes, standard style, the dual disc with ABS, typical stuff. And you do have a pretty cool teal paint here to give it some standout look on the road. But again, good stuff here, but I really like that they stepped up in the tire. So looking at the heart of the bike here, you've got a couple things going on with this 700-ish cc engine. It's actually just under 700 cc, so 689 or so. I can't remember, I have to double check that. But it's just under 700 cc. So it's in that 650, 700 class bike, which means insurance-wise, it's gonna be competitive with anything else in its class. You can see a pretty cool looking frame in here. It's got some cool stuff. Even the swing arm here, you got that big sort of design swing arm, which is not hidden by the exhaust, which tucks in close because all of the work of the exhaust is done right underneath there in your catalytic converter. Down here, what's cool about this engine is not just that it's a parallel twin, again, standard for the class, it's that it's got a 270-degree firing order, 270-degree crank. So it changes the firing order, basically making it an uneven firing order, which makes it sound super cool. You also have torque down relatively low in the rev range and good power, which means it feels strong everywhere on the road. So we'll talk about that. Let's do that right now. So I want to talk about that torque sort of in that mid-range or lower range of the power band, because sometimes what that does is that limits overall peak horsepower. Now, peak horsepower isn't a problem on this, but you'll have people that sort of misunderstand how these bikes are ridden. A true race bike makes its peak power way up top in the revs. Essentially, you're revving near red line to make maximum power, to make good power. And it doesn't have a whole lot of power in that mid-range. What's great about a street bike is, I don't care what kind of rider you are riding in the mid-range of the power on the street. You might go up to red line every now and then, but the majority of your riding, like I'm talking 99% of your riding, no matter how aggressive you are on the street, most of your riding is still done in relatively the mid-range of the power band. And that's why a bike like this over a race bike is actually more enjoyable on the street, because you're always in that power band. So having the torque down low on this compared to some other models and other of its competitors really gives you that oomph, that sort of feel of power through town, and makes it fun to drive. So this bike is all about fun to drive, and that's also what that sort of 270-degree firing or 270-degree crank does, gives it that cool sound. This bike is about the experience, not just about a spec sheet. And that's what I think people forget about a bike like this, and why it's so much fun, and why so many people like it. So let's jump on for a second so you can see what it looks like with me on it. Now, I'm about 6 feet tall. It is a relatively wide bike in the tank, and it actually has a relatively wide seat. Like, I'm a little bit forward on the seat. I can move back quite a ways, and it's very wide. So that's a good thing for comfort for most people. The other thing with comfort is your handlebars are not too wide, so you're kind of tucked in close, feels a little sporty, and your legs are, they come out around here, so it feels like a muscular bike, but the actual narrow seat where you put your feet down is very narrow, and it's very easy. Like, I'm outside of the foot pegs and still flat footing. You could be in front of the foot pegs, you can be behind the foot pegs, and still easily flat foot. If you're my height, which means if you're shorter than me, I'm about 6 feet tall. If you're shorter than me, you're gonna fit on this bike just fine. And it's a very confidence-inspiring position. A couple things I like about this seating position. First of all, of course, you're upright. I think some people forget that even though it's a naked bike, some of these TFT displays and dashes give you a little bit of wind protection. The wind isn't really hitting you until the chest area, not on the, the stomach area, because you have some height here just to the seating position. So you don't have a fairing, but you do have a little bit of wind protection, more so than you might think, which does take some pressure off, but you still have that open air feeling. But it's a comfortable ride. You can wheelie this bike, you can handle this bike, and you feel very in control. Having these handlebars close to you also puts the mirrors a little bit closer to you, which effectively gives you more view in the mirrors. So again, for on the road versus a sport bike, which may have them way in front of you, which is nice if you're in a tuck position, they're still within your view. This puts you in the upright position, the mirrors close, which gives you a wider field of vision. So overall, you feel very in control on the seating position, in the mirrors, everything else, and that's really what this bike is about. It's a very confidence-inspiring bike. It's not a hard bike to ride, not a hard bike to feel comfortable on. So let's take a look at some of the controls here as we zoom in on some of this. And actually, I'm just gonna view you we're gonna show you some of that seat as we come through as well. Then we'll come back to the controls, and then we'll move our way through again from there. So taking a look at the seat here, of course, you have the rear seat here, which is actually a decent size for what this bike is. It's not something you're gonna wanna have somebody touring on for a long, long time, but taking somebody around town, they actually have a comfortable seat where they don't feel like they're gonna be falling off it. So decent size, not too big, it's typical for the class. And of course, you can mount all kinds of luggage accessories on this style of seat. So you can put a tail bag or something like that on. And then you have a nice wide seat here. And you can really see, hopefully you can see in the picture there, it curls down tightly here, but it really comes wide here. So it's a very comfortable seat, which allows you some room to move around to stay comfortable on a longer ride, and you're in a good seating position for a longer ride. So I do think this is the kind of bike you could do, mini tours with and that kind of thing as is. I don't think you need a whole lot of wind protection. I don't think you need to change out seats and stuff like that. You're in a really good position to do short trips or all-day rides. You can be quite comfortable on this bike. All right, one piece of this bike I just want to show you before I show you the dash is the key location. This is not something you're going to want a keychain on, because you can't see your key from where you're riding. It's in front of the dash instead of behind the dash. So this is a couple things. One, like I said, don't put a valuable keychain on there. You probably can't see what it's flapping around, what's hitting. Now there's nothing really it's going to hit over here, but it just would look weird flapping around on the front end of the bike. Two, it's a little harder to reach, not a big deal. It is what it is. But three, this dash mounted panel, which is very good, we'll show you in a second, is mounted on your handlebars here, not above your handlebars. That does bring it closer. That does make it kind of nice and easy to see and easy to read. It makes it kind of feel larger to you, but it does eliminate a lot of the handlebar for adding accessories like a cell phone mount or something like that. So you can still do it over on the side here, but you can't do it in the center. A lot of times you can mount it sort of below the dash, that kind of thing. Just something worth considering. It'll be fine. There's lots of ways to do things, and I'm sure there's an aftermarket full of accessories. You can do all kinds of things, but it is an interesting and unique design here with the key in front, and the dash sort of on the handlebars and raised in and out. So let's take a look at that dash right now. All right, so we're gonna cover the controls here, gonna cover the controls there in a second. I just kind of want to give you a view of the dash, sort of from the driver's perspective here. Turn the key to the on position. Of course, this is a full color TFT display. We are gonna zoom into that right now as we do that right here. Quick zoom, there we go. All right, couple things I really like about this. This is a very clear dash, and like I said, because it pulls you closer, it appears larger than it is. Now, one thing you can't really see is the red line numbers just in this sort of daylight color, so you can see 10, 11, 12. I can see that easily in daytime. Now, I should always point out with a TFT display, they never film with the camera as well as you can see with your eyes. So what you're seeing is not as good as it could be. We'll just start it up for a second here. Hasn't been started in a while. There we go. Got to get some fuel through there. All right, so when you hear it here at idle, no big deal. You can see the tachometer is easy to read. Sometimes you got to ride the bike. I don't know if it mic'd properly, but nice and quick revving, and it does have a nice sound to it. Again, I haven't got it mic'd up properly, so you're not going to be able to hear it the way I'd like to show it, but it is something that has some character, has some grumble to it, and for a parallel twin, it just has a more unique character. Where you really hear it is not when you're revving it from stop, it's when you're revving it under load, so when you're actually driving. A couple things I kind of like about your gear indicator here. I don't know, it's just a different way of doing it. We all know it's got a 6-speed transmission, but they show first gear below, then neutral, then second. So I kind of roll through the gears selection right there, which is, I just think is kind of cool. You've got various information, and the biggest thing is the clarity here. Everything here is really, really crisp. Temperature gauge, fuel gauge, all that kind of stuff. You've got fuel efficiency information there as well, clock, you know, lots of good stuff. So let's take a look at the control side now. We'll go left side and right side and take a quick peek at that. So left side, clutch side, you've got pretty standard stuff. You've got a flash to pass over here, high beam, low beam, signals over here, horn down there, and your 4-way flashers. I really do appreciate it has 4-way flashers. Not every bike in this class has that. I think that's worth looking at. Hazard lights, 4-way flashers, whatever you want to call them. Definitely worth having if you can get them. Now we're going to scroll straight across the handlebar here and look at the other side. Let's just go back up. We should probably not do this in one take, but hey, why not? Over there, you've got the combined kill switch with start switch, and then you've got that menu item. So one thing that's interesting is most motorcycles put your menu selection, your information on the non-throttle side, so you can actually play with it while holding steady on the throttle. That's, you know, this works well with this dial here, but it is something that is different than a lot of other bikes do. So you have to just sort of decide that, you know, while you're on the throttle, you're going to have a thumb off, which to me is just a little bit less easy to play with while you're riding. But to be very blunt, it works perfectly fine, and you probably shouldn't be playing with things while you're on the throttle so much, but let's face it, we all are. So let me just zoom back out here, and we'll just sort of show you the both together. We'll cycle through a couple things, but again, it's just, to me, it's a little awkward being on the throttle side if you're on the throttle. So you can sort of roll through here, instant and average fuel efficiency. You can kind of see things, and they're literally just sort of moving down there, right? You can see cool and temp, that kind of thing, all that kind of stuff. So just kind of roll it through. Very easy to work through, but it is something that, to me, I'd rather have my hazard lights here like they do on the MT-03 and the menu button on the other side, I think, but hey, it is what it is, and it works perfectly fine. Taking a look at the face of the bike, there's a lot that I really like here. You've got some marker lights down here, which I think you may see turn on. Again, it's hard to see outside with the camera. It's easy to see in person, but as we turn it on, you can sort of see these come to life here. The other thing I really like is that your signal lights have a separate little bright light, and they don't show up as well on camera as they do in person, but they have a little extra bright light there for just a daytime running light. It really helps you, especially at night, helps people pick out the single headlight that it is a motorcycle, right? To have those in there. And again, the signal lights, again, are outside of those marker lights, so outside of those lights there. So that's a good thing. Now to turn on the headlight, you've got to start it up, I think, here. So we'll start it up there, and you can sort of see the light there. I don't know if you can see it a whole lot. Yeah, it doesn't really change much on camera, but you've got a pretty cool little design here. It's it looks a lot like the MT-03 yesterday, but the point is, this is a high-end light for the bike. And what a light like that does is, being an LED light, it shines a daylight color out in front. So the overall shape of this rounded shape, looks like a little golf ball. The rounded shape allows it to be a projector beam headlight. So what that means, it's a really clean light, it focuses the light, but also that whiter color helps you identify things quicker. It makes it closer to daylight, which means your eyes can tell if it's a raccoon or a rabbit or a rock, which are all good things to know. Rock's not moving, the other two might. So really nice lighting here, a little bit of marker light there, and then the extra marker light there, just really quality lighting. Why don't we show you the taillight while we're at it? Take a look at the taillight here. Let's just zoom in a little bit. You can see it's got some character to it. It's got some pattern there as well. And we're going to show you the signal lights here as well. Signal lights, of course, on the back don't have marker lights, but they look almost the exact same as the front. So instead of having that as a marker light, it's part of your signal light there. So that works just fine. And then, of course, if we were to grab the brake, super bright instant on LED light there. So kind of cool lighting. Again, it looks a little more higher end. And the other thing that looks a little higher end to me is, again, as you scroll down here through a bike that I rolled through some mud on the way here, you do have a sort of more aggressive tire, and that is a good width to this. Let me just double check here. I believe this is a 180 series tire just by looking at it. So let me see. Of course, I can't see the measurement right here. There we go, 180 series. So again, nice wide tire. Other bikes in this class have a 2 centimeter narrower tire. You've got the 180 series tire. So again, it looks very muscular, and that's really what this is about. It's about look, feel, character. It's a lot of fun. So let's talk about who this bike is for. Well, first of all, this design of bike is something that will fit newer riders. The comfortable riding position, the very approachable feel of this bike, I think fits newer riders well. Now, it may not be the bike you want as your first bike because it can be a little bit aggressive for people who don't want some of that aggressiveness. It can do wheelies. It is quite powerful for what it is, but it's still that midline kind of bike. I feel like this engine size, especially this engine itself, is right in that line of the perfect road bike. It's kind of the power you want, and it's not something that you'll find yourself wanting to move up from. There are a lot of people who ride their entire lives and don't need any more power than what's in this one. So that's one piece of it. I think the other reason to buy a bike like this, and specifically this one, is there's a real character to this. It is a bit of a muscle kind of bike. It looks muscular from the tire to the tank shape to the inlets at the front to the overall aggressive style. And it really is that. It's kind of a muscular, fun bike to have, but it's not something that's so crazy it's gonna just annihilate your insurance budget. So this to me is a bike that is all about fun. The way the firing order works in the engine, it makes it sound cool. The way it looks overall, it's an aggressive look. To me, it looks far better in person than on camera. This overall design, I think, of just all of these naked bikes across the many manufacturers, they look kind of funny on camera, but they look great in person. So it's just an aggressive bike that's comfortable and upright. And really, if you look at the bikes that when the Japanese bikes became popular in North America, it was a standard upright seating position that really sort of became that comfortable. Sporty, economical, but the upright, comfortable seating position, that's what this still is. The difference is they've gone from some of those 4 cylinders in the past to now 2 cylinders, which make more power than those older 4 cylinders did, and they're comfortable and fun to ride. It's a do-everything motorcycle. Can you tour on it? Well, not as well as a touring bike. Can you go to the racetrack on it? Well, not as well as a racetrack bike. But is it really good on the road? Yes. Can you tour? Yes. Can you go to the racetrack? Yes. So it kind of does everything, and you can really kind of decide what kind of riding you like by keeping this bike for a long, long time. So to me, I'm a big fan. There's a reason this bike is kind of legendary. The MT lineup is such a legendary lineup. You want more power, move up the lineup. You can get the same basic thing in more power. You want something really lightweight, and maybe this isn't in your budget. MT-03, we just reviewed it yesterday, is a good option as well. So that's my quick review of this MT-07. If you have questions and things you want to know that I didn't talk about, make sure you let me know in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe to this channel because there's a whole lot more coming. Like I said, 2024 is of a whole bunch of brands of bikes are already starting to appear. We're going to start getting them out, getting a first look at all those bikes, and we're going to continue to come back to them again and again and again. We're not just going to review them once, we're going to review them again and again to make sure that you have the information you need. So I want to thank McLean Sports here in Fredericton, New Brunswick. They are awesome because they give me complete access to this lineup, but if you want to check them out, I'm also a customer here. I just bought a dirt bike from them last week. They treat you amazing. Like, I've seen them treat their customers, so they do a really good job here. So make sure if you're in New Brunswick, you give them a chance, check them out. You can view the website. It's in the link in the description. And thanks everybody for watching. Make sure you subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.